I think that I share in the disappointment. And but if you understand why the galamsey menace is still alive, then you wouldn't be surprised, because you would then realize that there hasn't been anything like a fight or an effort to end galamsey. What has been happening basically has been rhetoric.
Oh, really?
And yes, and public speeches.
Is it that is not enough, or that there's been nothing? At least in
So
this regime, the media started a campaign, the regime took over, and then did the operation, hold the galamsey thing, except that it's not being successful. Is that not a thing?
Well, I'm saying that, yes, the media started a campaign. The government took it up at the time in 2017. If you remember, and that was the first year in President Akufo-Addo's tenure as president, and a lot of fantastic, statements were made, including, in fact, proclaiming that he was prepared to put his presidency on the line if it meant that fighting the galamsey menace would let him lose his presidency come the next elections. In fact, at that time, in July 2017, the president himself knew the problems when he said, and I quote him, "Rivers that have been with us for centuries are dry now. Forest areas which we should preserve for the sanctity of our lives are being devastated, all because of the phenomenon of galamsey. And all kinds of people from all walks of our national lives are engaged in the exercise." And then he names them: security personnel, political leaders, business women, and Nananom, some chiefs, are all involved in this. So the president knew the devastating effects of galamsey, and in fact, at that time, he knew that all these high-level personalities, politicians, security personnel, chiefs, and so on, were all involved in the menace. But unfortunately, along the line, for whatever reasons, the effort to combat the menace was perhaps, dropped. And by 2023, the president himself, as he said in January, was actually the one defending companies that were being accused and were being cited as companies involved in illegal mining and destroying our forest reserves, when he told the Catholic bishops that no, Akunta mining is not doing any illegal mining anywhere. So from a promise to put his presidency on the line, we got to a point where the president was actually the one now clearing companies that were devastating our forest reserves. And so when I say that I am not surprised about where we are, because the commitment to fight the galamsey menace has not actually been an actual commitment, that is what I mean. Yes, some efforts were made. If you go to somewhere around Ashaliboche, after Medina, you would see dozens of, these payloaders and other equipment that were being used in mining sites, all parked there, seized and parked there. About, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, close to 100 of them are still there. But something we do know, that as the Attorney General was saying, if you talk about prosecution, in 2022, when an analysis was done, it was discovered that only about 2 Chinese were in our prisons for involvement in illegal mining or galamsey. But we do know that Ghanaians, basically bring these people, put them in our forest reserves, in our water bodies, to do all these things, and in the end, nothing happens to them. When we talk about prosecution, we are not talking about the persons who are really involved in the galamsey. We are just talking about the laborers, the people who are hired and paid some minor, monies every day. You go meet them at the mining site, with mud and all those things. They are the ones we grab and go and prosecute. But these people don't have the monies to buy all the equipment. They don't have the money to buy the chamfans. And as the paramount chief of the Axim area, Awulai Atipurukusu, said in September this year, who is in charge of our harbors and the places where these things are cleared when they are coming in? If the government is indeed serious about dealing with the illegal mining phenomenon, there are particular things that when they are being brought in the country, they are not being brought by Anglo Gold or Newmont or all these big mining firms. They are being brought for illegal mining and small-scale mining activities. But how do they get cleared into the system? And how can the government then convince us that it is really fighting the menace? It is not about deploying military folks.
Tell me, have you lost hope that we will win, particularly that we have encountered a regime in which the fight has been heightened as never before, and yet this is a time that we have seen the worst of the devastation?
Well, so it is because it is not as you put it in terms of the fight has been, upscaled. It is actually the rhetoric around the fight that has been upscaled, but in terms of the actual fight, it has been downscaled. That is the reality. And we have no less a person than the minister in charge of the sector, Professor Kwabena Frimpong, who was made to chair an interministerial committee to deal with the phenomenon, presenting us with the facts, presenting us with what he knew as chairman. And today, what is the same government saying? The same government is saying that, look, whatever was presented is not evidential enough to do anything. And you travel across our constituencies, our districts, and community members will tell you, oh, the party chairman is involved in this. Oh, there is the constituency organizer who is doing this in this area. Oh, as for this galamsey, the police people and the military people, when they come, I mean, basically, even when they are storming the forest, the people in the forest are called to be told that, oh, tomorrow they will be coming home. And then, that day they wouldn't be there. So at the end of the day, as the president himself said, security people are involved, politicians are involved. He's been told several times that people around him, people in Jubilee House, are involved. And this is not me saying. This is even including Professor Kwabena Frimpong. But, there's a deaf ear to it, and evidence that is presented is denied. Media is, our colleague Erastus Asaridonko has done a fantastic series of work around this, sometimes putting his life in danger.
Not sometimes, all the time.
All the time, actually.
And even simply sitting here and discussing it, some of us you have no idea what we go through.
Absolutely. And something, I don't think that if there is that genuine commitment to say, look, we want to end this menace, or at least minimize it completely as a country, and there is that political will to do it, we can do it. But the fact that it is still ongoing points to nothing but lack of political will, and the fact that persons who are involved, if you recall, there was a time that we were told, party hiensika, and this was a recorded conversation. Party nu hiensika, and the source of the income was the galamsey menace.
The CDD did its survey on funding of political party campaigns, where it talked about the fact that you needed about $100 million to be able to prosecute a successful campaign, and it found out how some of the money was coming from some of these kind of things.
Absolutely, and I believe that all our politicians, we do know. Let us put it on record that it is not the first time we are experiencing galamsey. It's not as if it is under the Akufo-Addo regime alone that we are witnessing the phenomenon of galamsey. It's always been there.
Okay.
But it is about the scale, how our rivers, major rivers, have all been polluted. At some point, Ghana Water Company was warning that, look, the way things are going, a time may come we may have to import water.
Right.
And yet, it's escalating.
Thank you. And before I come to the studio,